Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Today, I'd like to explain that in the UK, we use the word pharmacy and chemist interchangeably. It would be very, very common for someone to come to you and say, "Excuse me, can you tell me where the chemist is, please? Where's the nearest chemist?" And by asking this, they're looking for a pharmacy. Now, we use this word a lot. Okay, so some people might even say that we use the word chemist more than we use the word pharmacy. And certainly in the UK, amongst native speakers, it would be the word chemist that we use. If you ask someone where the pharmacy is, they will completely understand. They won't be puzzled or shocked. They'll still be able to help you, but the word chemist is much more common. We even have companies with chemist in the name. One of our major high street retailers, which is a chain of pharmacies, is called Boots the Chemist. That's its name. So that shows how much we use and respect the word chemist in our culture. I think the word pharmacy for some people is just a little bit too medical, and the word chemist has a much wider idea. Up until the 1950s, of last century. Oh, it makes me feel old when I say that. I mean, I wasn't alive in the 1950s, but my parents were. But anyway, up until the middle of last century, when you received your qualification to practice as a pharmacist, the title you were given wasn't pharmacist, it was chemist. And that started to be phased out. That just means changed, but slowly. It started to be phased out over a period of time. But the people rather preferred the word chemist. So even today, you might still see chemist shops with the sign above the door, not saying pharmacy, but saying chemist. I know that some people in the English culture are very keen to preserve some of our history, and actively there are people around who are trying to allow us to save words like chemists rather than change them all to pharmacy. So that might be another reason why we still hear the words. But even for me, if I'm talking to an English person, I'd never say the word pharmacy. I would say the word chemist, and I would expect the person to know exactly what I mean. I only use the word pharmacy if I'm traveling, if I'm not in the country, or something like that. So there we are, pharmacy and chemist. Another thing I want to tell you about chemists is that when I was a little boy in the 1980s, if you went to a chemist or a pharmacy, as we just discussed, um, you went there to have your photographs developed, not to pick up medication. And I think the reason for that is because chemists were incredibly local, and they realized that because they had chemicals, of course, they were able to diversify what they were selling. And by doing that, they could offer two services. So before the internet came, it was very, very common for pharmacies to offer photographic services. You could have your camera film developed there. It's very interesting because you simply dropped it in and you picked it up a few days or a week later, and they returned the camera film to you so that you always had it in case you wanted more in the future. The weird thing, though, about getting your photographs developed at the chemist was that if you'd been on holiday, if any of your photos were a little bit, let's say, revealing, okay, maybe the woman was revealing too much of her body, or if the man was revealing too much of his, or if perhaps there was nudity or a sexual pose, those photos simply weren't returned to you. You got the camera film back so you could go somewhere else, but those photos weren't developed. And if you asked, oh, where's the other ones? They might tell you, oh, no, we couldn't develop those. There was some problem, yes, with your film. Or they might tell you, oh, no idea, don't know, but you can try to have them done again somewhere else if you want. They didn't tell you why, but you didn't get back any which they felt were inappropriate. It was very interesting. Now, when the internet came, that was all phased out. Now, I think the last trip I took with a camera with a film inside it was probably my trip to Russia in 2005. And that's the last time I was. Oh, no, wait. That wasn't the last time I was in a pharmacy because I was still using uh, film and a camera with film inside it when I went to Arabia in 2006. So, yeah, it must have been somewhere around that time that the pharmacy stopped developing photographs for us. If you go into the big pharmacies now, they still honor that tradition because they have machines to allow you to print off digital photography. So you can take your camera in there and print a photo. That's a big part of their service if you get into any of the big pharmacies. So that's very interesting. So that's their way of honoring their past, I suppose, and also still trying to diversify. I think the idea was that they had chemicals anyway, so to develop photos was like a good sideline business for them, you know? So yeah, very interesting that I didn't know exactly when they stopped, but it must have been around 2007, 2008. And now to have uh, a camera film developed, you'd need to send it away somewhere. I mean, there are specialist photography shops around. I suppose it's a service they would offer. But yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. So there we are. So chemists and pharmacies, it's a word that you can use interchangeably if you're talking about the actual shop, the noun, the chemist, and the pharmacy. You might hear some people referring to the man as the chemist as well. Excuse me, is the chemist around? Is the pharmacist around? That's still fairly common. Um, I think the pharmacists all around here, they aren't British. I'm sure there are a lot of British people around who are pharmacists, but the ones where I'm living, they all seem to be Indian, Pakistani, many of them British born, Indian and Pakistanis. I think that's because to be a pharmacist, you can be self employed. So you can choose when you work, where you work. You can work part time in different shops. It gives you a lot of freedom, which suits people with big families, of course. It's interesting. I was in the chemist shop the other day, and I could see the pharmacist uh, was talking to an old lady. She asked to talk to him, and they were having communication troubles. I mean, he was uh, clearly African, and she was local, and I could hear the silence between them. She would say something, there would be a big gap. He would look at her and say, "Sorry, I don't really understand what you're saying." And it was just because the woman had a very strong accent and the place was very small. So I could hear both sides of the conversation, and I said, "Excuse me, I didn't mean to listen to the conversation, but she's asking for a special skin cream," and I was able to just help them both get what they want, you know. And the African was really happy that I had translated, but the woman was a little bit unhappy. And I said to her, "I'm really sorry. I was just passing by, waiting to be served, and I just wanted to help, you know." And she kind of like smiled and left and everything. Um, yeah, but I shouldn't really do that because clearly they were trying to have a private conversation. But then all these pharmacies do actually have private rooms you can go into. So I don't know why he didn't just take her in there, but he wasn't understanding her anyway. So I was glad to be able to help them both in that case. Other news from the UK today is that our king, he's had his official photograph released, the one that's to be used in government buildings. Uh, Here in the UK, we are not obliged to have the king's picture in government buildings. I know that in some countries you must have the picture of your leader in all places which are public. We don't have that, but many of them choose to hang a picture of the king. I tell you, it's not the nicest picture that I've seen of him. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the royals in the first place, but this one really isn't flattering. He has a weird, strange gaze looking at the camera, and of course, he's very old, and he's dressed in a military outfit, and he's kind of looking into the camera with his head to the side, and he's trying to smile. And you know, when our royals try to smile, they really just look evil. So I'm not saying anything bad about him, but this is not the best photograph of him. And they've said that this photo is free to to have. It will be given free to all public institutions. They need it, I think, to display for certain ceremonies, because if you become British, for example, you need to have a picture of the king at that ceremony. I don't know exactly why. I mean, I don't know what they do to you when you become British, but there's always a picture of the monarch there. I think you have to swear allegiance to them. I think that's what it is. So it needs to be there in some government buildings. And if you are a school, you can request to have a framed photo free of charge to hang in the wall of the school. Oh no, I don't think I want this picture anywhere near children. It doesn't look very flattering. It looks like an old man who's staring into the camera rather strangely. So it wouldn't be my first choice of photographs to hang in the house. Strangely, the Queen's photo was always very popular. I mean, again, I wouldn't have a photo of her hanging on the wall. One of my grandmothers did. They had a picture of the Queen hanging on the wall. But oh no, no, not my idea of decor at all. Uh, I think it was my other grandmother. They used to say the royals all look like horses because of their teeth, you know. But anyway, that's big news here. And the man who organized the Queen's funeral it seems that he has been banned from driving for life because he was talking on his mobile telephone and then he went through a red light on the traffic system. So the police saw him, they immediately issued him with a ban, and he tried to argue with them and say, well, actually, I need my driving license because I'm involved with the coronation of King Charles. But that didn't work. They still took away his license, and he's not allowed to drive anymore. His title was Duke of Norfolk. Norfolk is an area in the UK. I don't know why or how the royals work. I don't know how he became the one that organized the Queen's funeral, but yeah, so he's in big trouble. That's other news from the UK today. So there we are. So just to recap, chemist and pharmacy are the same. Chemist is widely used instead of the word pharmacy. If you ask someone where's the pharmacy, they'll understand, okay? So you don't have to worry, but we rather prefer the word chemist. And that's it from me today. I hope you've enjoyed this. So let's talk again soon. See you. Bye.